But my question is like, how does that all set up? Do you have like breaks in between like reads and then just, or did you just like try to trot through it all at
No,
once?
man, definitely breaks. I try to do a chapter and then do a break. And the reason because of that is I don't want to. There have been times where I've read a chapter and then had to take a break, and then uh the reason why I try to prevent that is because all of a sudden you might sound different when you start again. So I try to do the same chapter at least and then drink water. That's the key to audiobooks, drinking water, man, and taking breaks. But you don't have to sit down and read the whole book the whole way through. In fact, that's not necessarily encouraged, because speaking for a long time, like you say, your throat gets dry, you get tired, and your eyes get tired. Nobody really thinks about, unless you're, I mean, even if you're reading on on paper or on the computer screen, your eyes still get tired. So taking breaks is definitely a good thing. So I try to, in order to prevent not sounding differently, I try to say read a passage before, or read like, if I like the next day I start trying to read the passage, like the last couple of lines beforehand, so I can get my voice warmed up, if you will. Uh, and you are sounding normal, but you still want to add. Uh, the best way of saying it is add interest. You're reading this book, somebody's hearing you read the book. You want to be interesting. You want to sound not overly excited, but you want to sound like you're interested in what you're saying, even though you've never, like I said, like I never played the game. I didn't really know about it until I started reading about it, and then there were like another book like SEO. That was another book. I familiarized myself with SEO. You definitely have to familiarize yourself with the words, the different phrases. If they reference something or a specific technique, you want to make sure you're saying that correctly. So like you say, you're definitely learning during the process, but you definitely want to take the time to do your research beforehand as well. So personally, I like to read the book before and jot down any words or phrases that I don't know, to make sure that it sounds correct. So there's different things on how I would check a YouTube link or somewhere where somebody's talking about it or saying the word naturally, so I can hear how they would say it. And then I usually like to hear more than one person say it to make sure that it's the
Yeah.
correct pronunciation. But yeah, that's usually how I do with audiobooks.
All right, that's a good process. Probably a lot of like navigating, nitpicking, and making sure you get it right. But you're right. A lot of people will pronounce words two different ways. For
Yep.
example, like my last name can be pronounced Bunnell or Bunnell.
Mm,
so,
yep.
so you gotta like, I mean, I guess that wouldn't matter in that retrospect, but like in terms of like word pronunciation, you just like you gotta find like, all right, what is the most common way people sound this out, and then what does it all mean? Yeah, but I think that was what for me, like when I was reading out loud, like you got to pronounce words well. And
Mhm.
you also, like I said, and that's my like kind of weak point is like continuously reading and sound like it has to have a good flow to it.
Yeah.
And then, yeah. And then also, like you said, like if you're going to read something that like particularly like a self-care book or any like textbook that is labeled kind of boring, because most people don't want to read textbooks, but if you're listening to audios, like it can make the difference, I feel like, for the narrator or whatever to sound like like interested, like you can hear the sense, and maybe that reader or listener can get more into it. If you're gonna like speak in a kind of like a boring like voice, it's just good luck having people's attention, because
Hmm.
then you just hear it, you're like, and this was the like beginning of the Revolutionary War, the Battle of Concord, versus like, and this was the beginning of the Revolutionary War, that the Battle of
Yep.
Concord, and more add like a little like suspense in your voice, like it's about to be, even maybe a little bit of music in the background too. I don't know. That usually can
Some
add.
people like it, some people don't. So, I try to go, well, in fact, like I said, with some people like it, some people don't. So I try to make sure that it's not too much music in the audiobook, but and not even that the sound effects are too heavy. I try to make it even keels. The book, you know, it's an audio book, so I'm trying to make it still interesting. So I'm trying to have the people's performance carry the book. You know, instead of reading the book and saying he said, she said, it's more along the lines of hearing them as they talk. So you know it's the woman, or in this case, Destiny. That's her name. You know it's Destiny when you hear the voice actress, and you know what I mean. So
Yeah.
that's how. Yeah, so that's how I'm producing the book.